Ms. Cheryl Chan.
Mr. Speaker, sir, may I have your permission to take 4 oral PQs from number 3 to number 6 together?
Yes, please.
Members have filed several parliamentary questions regarding the recent spate of layoffs worldwide by tech firms. News sources have reported global retrenchment numbers at more than 21,000 employees across close to 50 tech companies worldwide in November 2022 alone, more than any other month this year. Members' questions touch on 2 related issues. First, the impact of recent global tech layoffs on our local workforce. Second, the employment support measures for affected workers. I'm going to take these questions together to provide a more holistic response. I will begin first with an overview of employment trends in the tech sector, as well as the impact of recent global tech layoffs on our local workforce. While there are no clearly defined boundaries, the tech sector generally refers to the information and communications or I&C sector. As of June 2022, the I&C sector employs 136,100 residents. This number has increased steadily over the past 5 years, growing by an average of 8,100 resident workers per year from June 2017 to June 2022. In comparison, the retrenchment numbers over the past 5 years have been relatively low, at an average of 790 resident workers per year. Mr. Sean Huang, Mr. Melvin Yong, and Ms. He Ting Ru have also filed written questions asking about retrenchment in the sector in 2022. Based on the available labour market data, 260 residents were retrenched in the first half of this year, as compared to the increase of 7,000 residents employed in the sector. Nonetheless, recent retrenchment notices received by the Ministry of Manpower indicate an uptick in retrenchment of residents in this sector. In response to Ms. Cheryl Chan, Ms. Mariam Jaafar, Dr. Lim Wee Kiak, and Dr. Shahira Abdullah's questions on the number and profile of workers affected by the most recent layoffs, MOM has received notices of retrenchment for 1,270 resident workers from tech companies from July to mid-November 2022. Around 8 in 10 of these affected workers were in non-tech roles. They work for tech companies, but they were in non-tech roles, such as sales, marketing, and corporate functions. And around 7 in 10 were aged 35 and below. And this is consistent with the low median age of employed residents in the I&C sector. Next, on employment support measures for affected workers. Most workers from the I&C sector have been able to secure a job soon after retrenchment. In the second quarter of 2022, the rate of re-entry into employment within 6 months post-retrenchment for residents in the sector was higher than for the overall economy, for both tech and non-tech workers. This suggests that retrenched non-tech workers had also found employment opportunities across the I&C sector and the larger economy. To Dr. Shahira Abdullah's question on whether demand for tech talent has started to fall this year, job vacancies in the I&C sector have in fact continued to rise in the first half of this year, from 11,100 in December 2021 to 12,100 in June 2022. This latest figure is more than triple the 3,800 vacancies in June of 2020. In addition, other sectors like financial services, including local banks, are also hiring for tech roles. Taken together, this reflects that there is strong supportive capacity across the larger economy and opportunities for affected workers to fill in-demand roles. Furthermore, half of the retrenching tech firms between July and mid-November 2022 have engaged outplacement partners or tapped on the industry networks to provide career transition services for the affected workers. In addition, the Task Force for Responsible Retrenchment and Employment Facilitation, or RTF, comprising representatives from Workforce Singapore, WSG, and NTUC's Employment and Employability Institute, or E2I, is also reaching out to all affected local employees, including the youths, which Dr. Shahira has asked about, to offer them employment support. This includes information kits on job fairs, career advisory, as well as coaching services. For the retrenched non-tech workers, we will also encourage them to consider CCP's career conversion programs, as well as skills upgrading to improve their chances of returning to the workforce. The RTF provides relevant information on CCPs during their engagement with retrenching firms. NTUC's E2I also collaborated with Tech Talent Assembly, Accenture, and Amazon Web Services to organize an Infocom Jobs and Skills Fair in November 2022, providing some 400 jobs on offer. Hence, to Ms. Joan Pereira's question regarding tripartite partnership to support affected employees, it is already happening. Responding to Mr. Satyandi Supat's question on the effectiveness of these job placement initiatives, 7 in 10 resident workers from the I&C sector who took up the RTF's assistance in 2021 found a new job within 6 months. To ensure that affected workers receive timely and effective support, it is important that retrenching firms adhere to the requirement to submit notices of retrenchment to MOM within 5 working days of notifying affected employees. To answer Ms. Joan Pereira's question on whether tech firms have been prompt in submitting notices of retrenchment to MOM, the majority of retrenchment notifications from the I&C sector since July 2022 were submitted on time. Employers who do not submit on time are issued with caution letters. Looking ahead, Dr. Lim Wee Kiak has asked if the government expects more layoffs of tech employees in the next 6 months. MOM is mindful that hiring demand may moderate in some parts of the I&C sector, given macroeconomic uncertainties and risks. We will continue to monitor closely and retrenchment trends, and we will render assistance to affected workers in both tech and non-tech roles through the RTF. We will also continue to work on expanding opportunities in the digital domain and invest in our workers to equip them with the skills and also with the experience to seize opportunities. Thank you.
Ms. Joan Pereira.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for your reply. I have one SQ. Employees who have been dismissed or retrenched may need assistance, but may feel that the HR of their companies are not on their side due to various circumstances. Would MOM be able to provide a channel or dedicated hotline for such employees to seek some advice as to what they can do and what options they have? Thank you.
I thank the member for her question. Today, there is a TAFEP hotline that these employees can call, although it is not just purely dedicated for retrenchments alone. We will not hesitate to consider other means should the numbers continue to rise, but today the numbers are still within a manageable number. As I've also mentioned in my reply earlier on, besides the hotline, there is significant efforts done by the RTF to reach out to employees who are being retrenched. And on top of providing resources in the form of information kits on job fairs, career advisory and coaching services, the RTF also encourages retrenched non-tech workers to consider upgrading themselves through career conversion programs and skills upgrading to improve their chances of returning to the workforce. And as I've shared earlier on, notwithstanding the fact that the retrenchments are happening in the tech firms, there is a proportionate difference in the form of tech roles and non-tech roles within these tech companies as well. Generally, the tech roles, the employees who are being retrenched in the tech roles have been able to find jobs much faster post-retrenchment compared to the non-tech, which takes a little bit longer time. And hence, the RTF is also focusing on helping employees in these non-tech roles to upgrade, to convert the skills, to pivot, and to allow them a much better chance of getting employment. And thus far, right up till now, we have been reasonably successful. Thank you.
Ms. Cheryl Chan.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for your reply. I think you did not respond to the second part of my PQ, which is whether this layoff will actually have a knock-on effect on salary adjustment of workers in the tech industry. And because just now Minister pointed out that the large majority who were laid off are actually in the non-tech domain for these workers, the fact that they had been coming from the big tech firms, the salary adjustment would be quite significant for some of them if they have to do career conversion or if they have to go to other companies that's not in this big tech space. So would Minister clarify this? Thank you.
I thank the member for her supplementary question. Thus far, from the statistics that we have, the median income of workers in this sector, in the I&C sector, has been on an upward trajectory, with a median gross monthly income, which includes employers' CPF of full-time employed residents, increasing from $5,700 in 2017 to $6,100 in 2021. As far as the median salary of tech employees who have been retrenched, we do not have that data because retrenching firms are not required to include salary data of retrenched employees when submitting the MRN or the mandatory retrenchment notifications to the ministry. Hence, I'm unable to comment in terms of the breakdown of the non-tech roles of these employees who are being retrenched and whether they will have knock-on effects later on. Just from the perspective of November alone, we monitored the 4 big firms that have retrenched, the 1,000 over employees that we talked about. The firms are available in the media itself. About a third of the employees that were retrenched are in tech roles. And if you compare it with the second quarter, the number of vacancies that are available in the financial services, the number of vacancies outnumber those being retrenched in the tech roles by 10:1. If I use that as a proxy, whether there will be knock-on effects subsequently for those in tech roles, in the immediate term, it's a bit early for us to comment, given the huge number of vacancies vis-a-vis those looking for a job. In the non-tech roles, as I've shared earlier on, we're doing our RTF and also TAFEP, we're going through E2I and WSG to reach out to this group to get them to try to upgrade, reskill, and also attend some of these career conversion programs. And for the companies that have the ability to use NTUC's company training committees, that's an added avenue for them to train and retrain and reskill their workers as well. I hope that answers part of your question. Thank you.
Mr. Saktiandi Support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks, Minister, for your detailed answers to my PQ. I have 2 supplementary questions. One is, I'm mindful of the uncertain outlook that the IT sector is facing globally. But may I ask the Minister about potential job opportunities in the future? I think Minister mentioned that the positions for tech is still abundant. But may I ask him about the private versus public tech opportunities? Because with the uncertain outlook, the private sector opportunities would probably be uncertain. Can a Minister mention what our skill sets and outlook for the young ones? Because we've been pushing for young people to actually go into the tech sector with STEM and all that. That's my first question. Second question is in relation to my PQ. I think Minister has not answered my last last sub PQ, which is whether the ministry will engage industry actors to centralize information to ensure fairer and more equitable re-employment processes. Thank you.
We're at the stage, I thank the member for his supplementary question. As I've shared earlier on, based on the data that we have available today, and without sounding repetitive, the proportion of the impacted workers in tech and non-tech roles is about 1/3 to about 2/3. The ones in the tech roles, about 1/3 of the total proportion being retrenched. And I've also shared earlier on in my response to Michelle Chan's supplementary question that this group of people will find employment quite quickly. So in terms of working on the non-tech roles part, we are also stepping up efforts to help them. So today, we are actually in a state where the next few months is actually going to be quite critical, given the continued geopolitical uncertainties, and also given the fact that depending on whether the global supply chain disruptions continue, but we see that many of the areas that we have actually pivoted into and gone on to significantly invest through our industry transformation maps, as well as the job transformation maps that runs alongside with the ITMs itself, the financial services seems to be still moving ahead and still to be in a growth sector. So we'll do whatever we can to pivot those that would want to be pivoted, that would want to be transformed into these sectors. At the same time, for the more B2C type of sectors itself, I think at this particular point in time, we are watching that situation very closely. Perhaps I could request for Mr. Saktiandi Supat to file another PQ in the first quarter of 2023 to see how the follow-up action has been in terms of whether we're successful or not. Thank you.
Mr. Melvin Yong. Mr. Melvin Yong, do you have a question? Ms. Mariam Jaffa.
Thank you, Minister, for the response. I wanted to follow up on my PQ. Actually, I think my first part of my PQ, I don't hear an answer, which is of the portion impacted. How many of those are Singaporeans versus foreigners? And then my second SQ would be, I understand that there are still a lot of jobs available, but in the current climate where businesses are also relocating, looking at their location strategies, is the minister concerned at this point as to, given the rise in tech sector salaries in the recent past, whether our competitiveness as a tech sector in terms of cost and the availability of manpower and the ability to fill these roles quickly is in any way compromised? Thank you.
I thank Ms. Mariam Jaffa for her supplementary question. The reason why we did not provide the level of granularity that she has asked for is that we typically do not break down resident data further into Singaporeans and PRs. We follow a practice that is aligned with the official statistics that's set by the ILO, as statistical agencies worldwide typically cover the population residing in their country when we present statistical releases without a breakdown by nationality. However, if I may provide an indication, citizens make up a large majority of our resident labor force, which is at about 85%. The PR population has also remained stable over time. So if you take it together, This means that the resident data mirrors citizen data. And if we were to break it down, actually it provides little additional information. I think to her separate point in terms of for the cost issue itself, we have taken a very curated and differentiated approach to upskill, to upgrade the skill sets of our entire workforce, with a focus on the Singaporean core as our principle. There will obviously be some parts in the entire value chain which companies will want to be able to take advantage of offshoring certain of their services to capture some arbitrage opportunities. But I don't think for where we are today, it is possible and it's that easy. I would humbly submit to her and request that she files a separate PQ if she wants some level of granularity in terms of the offshoring. Then we can provide better statistics. Thank you.
Dr. Lim Wee Kiak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I would like to know that for those who are retrenched, that you mentioned 7 out of 10 actually can find jobs in a quite short period of time. I think the big question is, of course, when they find jobs, are they equivalent jobs or are they of the same salary? So if MOM do not track at a point of time their retrenchments, their salary, then I would like to ask MOM why not? Should you start tracking now so that you know what is the gap that they are facing? And then at least the government can provide some assistance in this way so that they can actually lessen the cushion in the impact of retrenchment.
I thank Dr. Lim for his supplementary question. I have earlier on shared that thus far in the entire I&C sector, the median income has been on an upward trajectory. And just to repeat, the median gross monthly income, including employer CPF for full-time employed residents, increased from $5,700 in 2017 to $6,100 in 2021. Now, to go into the granularity for each type of non-tech roles, I think it would be very, very granular. And if this is what you are suggesting for us to track, it is something that we could look into, but we need to understand the fact that today, of course, we are not downplaying the issue, and we have never taken our eyes off this period at any particular sort of quarter. But today, we don't see the switch into a lower paying job in a non-tech role as a fundamental issue that needs a particular focus. But we are very, very, very careful in terms of making sure that our Singapore core and our residents who are working here continues to possess the skills and to keep ahead. In fact, this is the focus of what MOM will be looking at in the months ahead. So I hope that gives you some reassurance that this is one aspect that we are very singularly focused on. Thank you.